Hey there, welcome back. I'm Crystalyn, and today I'm going to be talking about a few different things that you should stop using in the garden and on your houseplants. The first thing I want to get into is really important because it can definitely cause more harm than good. And that item is Dawn dish soap or other common household dish soaps. Dish soap is actually a detergent and a degreaser which we use in the kitchen to remove oils from our hands and oils and grease from dirty dishes. These dish soaps are really harsh and can do more harm than good by stripping away the waxy protective coating on your plant's leaves. This coating actually protects your plants from disease, pests, and excessive water loss. So it's definitely not a good idea to use any sort of harsh dish soap on your plants. Instead, you want to use a purpose-built insecticidal soap. These are potassium-based soaps, which are much more gentle, but will still work effectively on soft-bodied insects. We really like to use a safer brand insecticidal soap or something like Lost Coast on our plants indoors and outside. And always make sure that you follow the instructions for diluting the soap if it isn't a ready-to-spray option, because if you don't dilute it properly, you can add too much soap, which will result in leaf burn and further damage your plants. The next item I want to talk about is Epsom salt. And this item is often touted as a cure-all for everything from pests to disease to blossom end rot. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate, and magnesium is one of the nutrients that plants need to grow. It is, however, a minor nutrient, and plants just don't need very much of it. If your soil is deficient in magnesium or sulfur, technically Epsom salt would help to supplement this deficiency. However, this is not very common in in-ground soil, and you would need a proper soil test to diagnose this. When a plant is deficient in magnesium, you'll see a characteristic intraveinal fluorosis where the veins remain green, and you'll see yellowing in between the veins on the plant's tissue. And we do have another video all about nutrient deficiencies and identifying them in leaves if that's something you want to check out. High levels of potassium can also interfere with the plant's ability to take up magnesium. So in addition to not really knowing whether your soil is truly deficient in magnesium without having a proper soil test, adding Epsom salt can add extra magnesium, and too much magnesium can actually inhibit the uptake of calcium, which can result in blossom end rot. So if you're planning on using Epsom salt to supplement magnesium in your garden, a better option is to use it in conjunction with calcium. So an easier option is to use something like CalMag, which has both. And there is no evidence that Epsom salt does anything to repel pests in the garden, and you do not want to use it as a foliar spray because it can burn the leaves. The next item I want to talk about is 10-10-10 fertilizer. People often recommend just using a balanced fertilizer in the garden, and I have here a 4-4-4 fertilizer, which is also considered a balanced fertilizer. However, I would not recommend using a 10-10-10 fertilizer on your in-ground plants. That being said, I do use a balanced fertilizer on many houseplants as well as potted plants outdoors. Typically, plants don't need equal amounts of these nutrients, and oftentimes in-ground soil actually has enough phosphorus or even an excess amount of phosphorus. Over-applying phosphorus can lead to many different issues in your plants and the environment, and it also builds up in your soil over time. And adding too much potassium can also affect calcium uptake and lead to issues like blossom end rot as well. So even though it would be really nice and easy, a one-size-fits-all approach to fertilizing your outdoor plants really doesn't make sense. The best option is to get a proper soil test done and find out what your plants really need. And this is something you can order online or through your local extension office. They're generally pretty affordable and definitely worth doing. And I do have two honorable mentions for things that we see online all the time that I want to add to this list as well. The first thing is using whole eggshells in the garden. Eggshells take a very long time to decompose when they're not crushed or pulverized into a fine powder or mixed with vinegar to be made into a form that plants can actually use. So keep this in mind the next time you're thinking of using whole eggshells in the garden. And it is worth noting that eggshells do not work in deterring slugs in the garden. This is a common myth that has been debunked over and over again, and we have a whole video about managing slugs and nighttime pests if you're interested in that. And the next item I want to talk about is pine needles. A lot of people think that pine needles will work to acidify your soil. This is simply not true. Pine needles do not work to acidify your soil. However, we do like using them as mulch in the garden or as a top layer of mulch for potted plants. There's definitely an urge to use common household products in the garden as a cheaper alternative, and people definitely like making their own homemade products in the kitchen. And I can definitely see why this is compelling, but it's very important to use purpose-built products that won't harm the environment or your plants. I hope this video cleared up some misconceptions about some of the household products that you can use in your garden. If you have anything to add to this list, leave a comment below and let us know. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.